Thank you, Speaker. I rise to speak on the Water Legislation Amendment Bill 2022. The primary objective of the bill is to implement a strengthened non-urban water measurement policy that will significantly enhance the extent to which water take is measured, monitored and reported across Queensland. And the bill creates a framework or a starting point for a whole transformative reform of the state's non-urban water management system. The bill provides that standards can be made for meters, measurement plans and other measurement devices like telemetry. Starting with Queensland's Murray-Darling Basin, QMDB, catchment areas, those with volumetric surface or underground water entitlements will now be required to attach an Australian standard meter AS 4747 to their pump, along with cloud-based remote access telemetry systems. The new metering and telemetry systems are to be implemented in stages, starting with the extreme high-risk catchments in the QMDB. The bill is broadly drafted to provide plenty of scope for this to be extended much more widely across Queensland. In fact, it's clear from the mountain of policy documentation generated at both state and federal levels that the aim is to eventually take all non-urban water take, including bore water, dams and any other form of man-made water storage. While the regulation and compliance is important, it can also create an environment of anger and mistrust. There is a lot of concern that all of this increased surveillance on-farm activities could be used against farmers. We see this with the fishing industry and their logbooks. It is becoming more and more clear that the federal and state governments are planning to meter all non-urban water storages and eventually to fully automate and centralise the whole system. These new controls will inevitably change cultivation practices across the state, with potential to greatly constrict the state's food production and supply. The ACCC report also contained a number of worrying references to the use of water rationing in connection with these new telemetry devices. Transitioning the grid to an electronic AI and sensor-driven system will mean that the government regulators can pretty much manage the whole system remotely, using its many levers of control to dictate when farmers can pump and when they can't, or whether they can pump it at all. Farmers need to be able to plan their fields well and advance. There's a little doubt that fully automated and micromanaged water grid will significantly limit their ability to produce food. The bill explanatory notes state the full details of these new measurement requirements will be set out in Water Regulation 2016. This bill will simply enact a set of overarching policies with all the nitty-gritty details of the policies written into regulation at a later date. Such bills are a new type of legislation referred to as framework or umbrella legislation. And they lay down the basic principles but make no attempt to codify how the laws will operate at ground level. And this is not how parliamentary democracy or the making of good legislation is supposed to work, Mr Speaker. The whole national policy framework for water is geared towards creating a fully integrated set of networks within one large, fully automated and centralised system. A system in which the management options for farmers and other users will be strictly limited. Many hard-working, ordinary people will have their livelihoods destroyed by such a system, and the vast majority of them will be small family farmers. Under the NDB plan, the amount of water diverted for agriculture, towns and industry has already been reduced to around 28% of inflows. The majority of water in the basin is now transferred to the environmental, government agencies and other groups. If the intent of the basin plan was to reduce diversions, then it has succeeded, and we have reduced them. In terms of what the basin's plan set out to achieve, it is achieving it. Piling on more regulations, restrictions and control will only increase the price of water and cause irrigators to grow less food. Water governance has a direct impact on availability and affordability of our food in supermarkets, and the Murray-Darling Basin region is the home of cheap produce. It produces around 90% of Australia's fruit, nuts, grains and 76% of the vegetables and 100% of our rice and more than 50% of our dairy and sugar. It will be those on the low income and pensions who suffer the most if affordable produce from the Murray-Darling Basin is disrupted. Right now, farmers are facing significant challenges with energy costs, critical shortages and supply chain disruptions. Most are worried sick about how longer they can keep the lights on or keep producing food. And now is not the time, Deputy Speaker, for turning the regulatory screws on the sector that is so absolutely crucial to the availability and the affordability of food in this state and also in Australia. Thank you, Speaker.